Well, folks, we made it to season 7. Welcome to the Vulnerability Time podcast. I am your host, Josias Abriel, and published author. Speaking of published author, before the episode starts, make sure to go check out my books. They're available on Amazon, and the link is in the episode description below. Go ahead, get you some healing. One's a poetry book about overcoming pain and trauma and stuff like that, and then the other one's a self-awareness interactive journal notebook. So get you some healing. You're worth it. Another thing that you're worth all the love in the world. You're worth all the healing in the world, and I'm glad that you're here with us today to heal together. You are loved, you are valuable. This is your sign. Alrighty, enjoy the episode. Bye, folks. Alrighty, hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Yeah, I can hear you perfectly.
Can you hear from? Hang on, I'm just getting the settings. I'm going to put it on the Rode mic so it's better. Is that better? Hello.
Yeah, it's still great. Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, fabulous, fabulous. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Vulnerability Time. I am your host and published author, Josias Abriel. With us today, we have Jacintha. Did I say it right, or is it Jacintha? I'm terrible with names.
No, it's Jacintha. That's perfect.
Jacintha. Oh, wonderful. Well, wonderful. Welcome to the Vulnerability Time podcast, Jacintha. Folks, today our starting topics will be emotional safety when you're the only parent showing up, and grieving friendships that ended without an explanation. But before we get into our topics, everyone, Jacintha, tell us a little bit more about you, any credentials or what you do, or, just things of that nature. Any work you have
Beautiful.
out, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Josias, you can call me Jay because Jacintha is a little bit of a tongue twister. So it's Jacintha, kind of like Jacintha and Samantha put together. So you're very welcome to just call me Jay.
Okay.
Okay, so when I was young, I was always just a very happy little girl. And then as I got into my teenage years, something changed. And I had a lot of traumas growing up. And so when I was in 2019, 2020, we separated. My son started school and it was COVID all at the same time. And my son was not okay. He was throwing bins around the house, he was running up the street.
Mhm.
And his emotions during that time were so well beyond me. And even though I had done my own healing journey for 20 years, I really needed to be able to meet him where he was at. And so I started studying to be able to help my own child. And then during COVID, I saw that kids couldn't gain access to psychologists. There was a 6 to 12 month wait, which unfortunately hasn't changed today. And so I studied to become a family and child counselor and art therapist. We moved to the beach and I had a private practice in Torquay in Melbourne, which is a surf coast of Australia. And I worked out the pain points that children and parents were facing. And it was, yeah, there was a lack of disconnection and there was different parenting ways and we weren't seeing and hearing and hearing and having compassion for our children. The old parenting term, which I grew up with eat concrete, harden up, you'll be right, just wasn't working anymore. So we developed new language within a household and that's what I'm doing now. My business is called Happy Souls Kids, and it's now gone beyond a practice. It's now an app that is going global to be able to support children and their big feelings and emotions.
Yes. Yeah. And
Mhm.
I think that's so beautiful. So Jacintha, Jay, I'll call you Jay.
Yeah.
Um,
Much less syllables in that one.
I like Jacintha though. I think that's a very unique name. I've never heard that before. I love that name.
Thank you.
Um, send the information about the app so people can check it out. Send it to me so I can add it to the episode description so folks can, check that out. I think that's so beautiful. So you mentioned, so folks, anything that Jay sends me will be in the episode description below. So don't forget to go check it out and support. We love to support over here. Um, so um, you said it's called the center
Happy
that you
Souls
opened
Kids.
up, Happy Souls, you said?
Yeah, Happy Souls Kids.
Okay,
Yeah.
wonderful. That's so beautiful. So that's not something that you always grew up, wanting to do. That just kind of like the circumstances later on, led you in that direction. That's correct?
I've always been, quite a sensitive, emotional human being,
Mhm.
and I was always the person that people would go to when they had their problems.
Mhm.
And so without even realizing, I was my own counselor, to my friends and family, and, I can hold space for people, I think, because I have been through so much of my own traumas.
Mhm.
I don't have judgment around other people, and I realize that people are going through some really hard things. But when you separate, Josias, you see how many people are there for you, and there's not many. You know, there's people can't hold big feelings, they can't hold emotions, they have a period of time like, "Well, it's been 6 months, it's time to get over it." It's like, well, at 6-month mark, I hadn't even touched the sides for me. I was still broken, and not just from that relationship, from many past relationships that I hadn't got to the core of, and I really needed to get down to the, root cause of my pain and really deal with those issues, and that's what I did. After my separation, I didn't go into a new relationship, I just worked on myself, and I worked on the triggers and the habits and the beliefs and the patterns and the things that are inside me that I needed to work on that was really important.
Whoa. Jay, I said those exact words. So that's why I'm just like, whoa. Like,
Mm,
yeah, like, oh my gosh. Uh, Wow. I said those exact words, Jay.
mm.
You know,
You've been through a lot too?
oh, 1000%. And because of
Mm,
that, I was able to always, uh, hold space for others. But like you
mm,
said, like, it didn't look the same on the other way around, like, because not everyone knows how to hold space for those that have, everyone's different, but, some people, they can only like, I guess what I'm trying to say is some people only can like meet others as much as they meet themselves
exactly.
kind of thing. Yeah. And so hearing you say that, I was like, oh my gosh, like those words, they resonate with me on so many levels. Cause like, though now I have people around me that are able to hold that amount of space. However, but like growing up at the beginning of my healing journey, I didn't have that.
Mm.
And
And
so,
it's lonely. It's lonely.
exactly.
Mm.
And so, yes, definitely hear you there with, a lot of the trauma as well. 1000%. There's also something else I was gonna say, but I forgot. I
You can
forgot, which
come
I
back.
tend to do a lot, but I'll remember it. I'll remember it. So I think that's so beautiful. So Happy Souls, uh, how long has that been open? Like, how long has that been in business?
So it started as, Happy Souls. I used to interview people and their journeys and their experiences, and I loved it. I love to hear people's rawness. I love to hear their where they've come from, and I think that everybody's got a story to tell, and I held that space for people. But then after we separated, it changed to kids. I just moved into kids. Kids have always had my heart as animals have as well, and I think when you know that you can be of service to people, that's when you really need to step into that place and be of service to people. So, um, yeah, it just so happened to move to kids. It was quite funny actually. I saw a psychic when I was separating, and years later, she said that you work with kids in art, and I didn't even realize at the time. That she'd said that, like, that wasn't, like, a path that I was gonna take because of something that she said, and I've tried many things in my life. I'm an integrative and holistic health coach, and I've studied gut health, and That didn't really work, but the thing that worked for me the most as children is that's where I've got the most traction, and that's with parents and families, and that's where I feel the most at home is with
Mhm.
kids. But it was so interesting, 3 years later that I read that, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that she said that to me because 'cause I'm an art therapist, study play therapy, and, um, with kids, it's a different language. Like,
Mhm.
I see them for who they are. I don't have any expectations of children. I just see them for who they are, and I think that that's something as parents, that often we have expectations on our children to act a certain way, and sometimes we've got to realize that they're kids,
Mhm. Mhm.
and they're not perfect, neither are we,
Mhm.
and having more compassion. It's like one of those times where you're in the kitchen and you pour over the milk and you get really angry and frustrated with yourself and, "Oh my gosh, I'm so angry."
Mhm.
But then when a child does it, you'll tell them to stop crying or,
Mhm.
stop, and you're only mirroring to them what you're doing yourself, and
Mhm.
children have this very innocent way of living,
Mhm.
and if we just met them where they're at and saw them for who they are,
Mm.
there'd be so much more connection.
Wow. Yes. Oh, I completely agree. That was so beautifully
Mm,
said, Jay. That was beautifully said. Um, that was so beautifully said. I can relate to that from the child aspect. I
mm,
definitely can relate to that. And I just love the awareness and the grace that and understanding that you have
mm.
um, for children, so I love that. Um, I remember something that I was going to say is so you mentioned an example about the six. Folks, I promise we're going to get into the topics. I promise, but just but this is the last thing I have to say. When you mentioned like let's say at 6 months, someone's saying like, "Oh, get over it. It's been 6 months," and you're like, "Well, I barely touched the sides." I am so glad you mentioned that. I completely like agree with you. Like healing. There's no my timeline for healing is not the next person's. It's not the
No.
person, right? Exactly. And so I learned from having it done to me so many times. I learned through that way. Through
Mm.
having, folks tell me, "Oh, well, that was years ago, get over it." And I'm just like, I'm healing. I am healing. Like I'm going to therapy and things like that. Like trust me, like I am working on it. However, um it's not there are some things that I'm just like I won't get over. I will get through and I'll grow through and I'll heal through, but that doesn't mean it'll be cured. Like I was just like
Exactly.
that, right, exactly. So I loved what you had mentioned. And also it's kind of like, yeah, like let's say if there's like a breakup and then it's 3 months later and they're still like hurting about it, I learned to just meet them where they're at, and what if they'll like like 3 months, 4 months, 5, 6, 7, a year, like grieving hurts and grieving takes time and healing hurts and healing takes time. And of course,
It
there's
does.
beauty that can come from it and things like that. But it's like, things take time. And that time looks different for who it depends on the person, and so I loved what you had said there because yeah, like yeah, you could be 6 months in and barely have touched the sides, and that is okay, that is valid, and that is understandable. Humans, we're very complex individuals.
Well, we
Um,
just don't know what somebody's been through. Like, your experience
exactly.
might be different to other people's experiences, and there might be
Right.
trauma in there, or there might be different things that they've gone through that you have no idea about, and,
Right.
um,
Hmm.
sometimes that person doesn't even know that themselves. They don't even
Right.
know what they've been through,
Hmm.
and
Right.
things come to the surface without them realizing, and that takes time to process, and
Right.
so sometimes that's extra time. Mm.
I love that you said that. The time to process it is also super important. Because for me, the situation that I was talking about was I was told this many times in the past, but um, I was told, about the sexual abuse that happened to me. I was told to get over it.
Mm.
And I was told that by a family member. Um, and like that was incredibly invalidating. And luckily, years later, I was able to tell them that's not how that works. Like, that's not one, like, just with anything. Like, don't tell, them to get over it, especially something like that. Like, that's not like, no, I have the right to process. I have the right to grieve the loss of my childhood, the loss of my innocence, especially if I, held it in for 15 years. Because
Mm.
it's when I was 15 that I finally, like, said it.
You
um
had the courage to talk about it.
yes, exactly. And how it was handled, how it was not handled, actually, I should say, as well. So there was so much into it. So years later, this is when around the time where I finally decided to completely just, um cut off certain relationships that I fought so hard to have, because I felt like I should have it because they're family, right?
Mm.
Um, so it's around that time, and I'm so glad that because of the healing that I have been doing and learning and unlearning a lot of things, that I was finally able to say, hey, that's not how healing works. It's not a
Mm.
it's not always a get over it type of thing. I would argue, at least from my experiences with anything that I've healed from, it wasn't this cure always. It just really wasn't. I more so just grew and learned and managed and healed. You know, um,
Mm.
you know, um, and then life now doesn't look like how life did back then. You know,
Because of the choices that you've made.
yes, exactly. And
Mm.
so it just was very empowering for me to be able to heal and learn to have those words to say, hey, that's not how that works. Because I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of them. They've abused me growing up in other ways, but of the family member that said those words, get over it. But I also was able to recognize that they don't know. They don't know.
That's a really big projection as well.
Hmm.
Like, that's they might have experienced something similar, or they might have heard those words from somebody else, or
Hmm. Oh, they
they
have.
might have not been able to express their own feelings, so they said,
Right.
like, "Oh, you just gotta get over it." That's how they are talking
They
about
tell themselves.
themselves,
Hmm.
and because you're willing to do the work, because you're willing to face all of your things and the
Yeah.
awful things that have happened to you as a child, which is just, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And the strong people are able to face that. Other people are not able to face that because 'cause they're not ready and they might never be ready.
Hmm.
And I think as humans, we just need to keep ourselves safe, and if that means moving away from somebody because they don't feel safe anymore, that is completely okay.
Right.
It is completely okay to move away from people if you don't feel safe.
Yes. Oh, thank you for saying that. Yes, I completely agree. Thank you. Thank you, Jay. Sorry, I'm such a Jacintha. I was like, thank you, Jay. Thank you, Jay. Um, and so, speaking of safety, emotional safety, I was really curious to the conversation point of emotional safety when you're the only parent showing up. I'm not a parent, so I don't know um anything about emotional safety when you're the only parent showing up. Um,
Mm.
from a parent's perspective, I don't know that. However, I know many of people listening um, are parents and will be able to relate. And even if they're not parents, they might soon be parents. Or I mean, I feel like there's still things to that they can get from this. So, why that conversation point, and what is your journey behind that? Take us through it.
When you separate, right at that time, I think it was Catherine Woodward. she brought out a conscious uncoupling course, and I was like, let's do this right for our child." And that wasn't really well received, and it was very much, "You are my partner and you are not." And I lost not just my partner at the time, I lost my extended family, and it was brutal.
Mhm.
It wasn't done in a kind, nice way, it was done quite brutally,
Mhm.
and unfortunately, that continued. It was, "I've got somebody else, I don't need you anymore," and that brought all of my abandonment issues and all of my things up.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just me, it was also my child, and I saw the signs from the very start of the separation that there was no presence there, um, and that was heartbreaking, and for years I tried. I did all the driving. I lived, an hour and a half away from Melbourne, which is in Victoria, and on my respite weekend, I had to drive an hour there and an hour back, so my only time away from my son. I had a 4-hour drive to do. That was my only respite away from my son. I never had any day-to-day help,
Yeah.
with him, despite asking, despite begging, despite being with lawyers. I just never had any help, and that was really hard for my son. He found that really challenging. He'd also find the transitions really challenging, like going from one energy to another, and this is really common in separated couples, is it doesn't mean that a child loves somebody more than the other,
Right.
but they generally do have a safe person. They have a safe person where they feel their wholehearted self around, and it's like that they're often like this at school as well. They hold this rubber band around them. They're like, "I'm good, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good," and then they come to their safe person and it all comes out, and you end up being that person that holds those big emotions and feelings for that child, and it's it's challenging when, 2 people have a child and one person ends up raising that child, and this is very common, that one partner often goes and has a new life, and they start a new life, and they forget about the life that they had before. Now, separating from your partner is one thing, but you can't separate from your child
Mhm. Right.
because that child's not going to blame you, they're going to blame themselves.
Right.
They're going to blame themselves that, "Oh, it's me, I'm the reason that my other parent isn't here," and it's not a male or female thing, or,
Right.
it's both. I've been a counselor with many people and many separated couples, and I've heard many different stories of these situations, but we just need to put our kids first.
Mhm.
We need to put their needs first, and sometimes that means facing whatever issues that you have with the parent, because you have to deal with your stuff. If you cannot be nice to your partner, to your ex-partner, to the mother of your child, to the father of your child, you haven't healed, and you have a lot of work to do.
Mhm.
Because, yes, sometimes we need time, but if you're going 4, 5 years down the track and you are still acting the same as you did when you separated, you haven't done enough work. We need to, as human beings, make sure that the children are the ones that are put first.
Mhm.
If you are off healing people, but you don't have a relationship with your own child, you're not a healer.
Mhm.
You're just performing. And I think that when it comes to children, they're just so innocent.
Yeah.
They don't need much. They just need presence. They need you to
Mhm.
be there. They need you to show up for them. It's like this beautiful little clip on Instagram. It's actually quite heartbreaking, actually. And there's this little kid that walks in and he sits down in the gym, and all his friends have their parents there, and he doesn't. And he just sits there, and he's just so upset. And the moment he sees his parent, he just is so excited. And it's little things like that, even just showing up for a child at a sporting activity or at a assembly at school or at a class walkthrough or whatever it might be, means so much to kids, so much. You have no idea.
Yeah.
Um, Mother's Day, Father's Day at school, if you don't have your parent there during that time, it's heartbreaking for them, absolutely heartbreaking, and I've had to sit through all of this with my own child,
Yeah.
and I've tried to communicate all of this, and it's just falls on deaf ears. It's like, "This is my life now, and I'll just live it however I want," and the only person that suffers in that is the child, and what happens is over time, a child starts to disconnect from that other parent without you doing a thing. The mother or the father or whoever it is often gets blamed, but it's nothing that they're doing. It's that you have disconnected your energy from your own child, and that is something that you have to work that out yourself. Like, that's what you've done. You've created that space, you've created that disconnect because the child doesn't feel safe there anymore, and I think it's really important that parents understand that, is that a child eventually starts to disconnect if you're not there.
Mm. Mm. Um, hmm. That's a good point. That's a good
Mm,
point. Yes. That was very well said. Very well said. Hmm. I don't know what to say to that. I'm just listening. Yeah.
mm,
Mm. It's very, very important. I definitely, on the child side, can relate to to um to that to some extent.
mm.
Definitely to some extent. Yeah. Unfortunate for me, unfortunately, I um was disconnected from both parents. Mm, they were
How did that
both
make how did that make you feel?
oh, awful, awful, and I realized later on that I was blaming myself. For me personally, it didn't it led to me thinking that I am unlovable or I am unworthy.
Yeah,
It
you
led
started blaming yourself.
exactly, exactly.
Mm,
And and these are things that I found out through the healing process, and I'm still on the journey. For me, healing is a journey, not a point. So, but I would say like towards the middle of my healing, I started to uncover these subconscious feelings that I was having, these subconscious thoughts that I was having, in which were, driving my life, but I didn't realize it because they were subconscious. They were like,
nice.
yes, the powerful but unseen. It's the subconscious. And yeah, is that I am unlovable, I am unworthy. Now, of course, there were other situations that have happened, such as the sexual abuse and the physical abuse. However, I'm seeing more and more now, though, that at least now in my life, when I do feel unworthy or unlovable, it's now I'm noticing the connection, that it's a direct correlation to the parents. For example, father was abusive,
Mm,
awfully, awfully abusive. Um, you know, mother, on the other hand, also wasn't a healthy relationship between me and her. Um, when I told her what happened to me, it's how she went about it that really, if someone, shares with you that vulnerable moment and you stomp on it, and I mean stomp, I was like giving my heart, you know, took a lot of courage to say what happened, and then it just gets stomped on, and it continued to get stomped on, continued over and over and over in multiple ways. And so seeing that amount of neglect, and seeing that amount of absence and Um, and there was some abuse that she didn't know that happened, but there are some that she knew and she allowed. Um,
Mm,
yes,
heartbreaking.
yes, yes, yes. And so, um, there was, so I saw my brother though get the love from the
Mm,
mother, from, the father, even though my father and my brother, they didn't really have the best relationship, but they had a way better one than I did. He will say that. Um, and him and my mother, they have a great relationship, So I saw the love in front of me because at first I thought, you know, um, maybe she doesn't know, and maybe she's doing the best she can, and things like that. And however, I also saw multiple times her avoid going to family therapy with me, you know, um, and she doesn't just avoid therapy, like she goes to grief counseling, because we had lost someone very important. Um, and just, but anyways, just seeing the lengths of love that she would go for my brother. So I was seeing it in front of me all the time,
It's
seeing
really challenging as a kid.
exactly, having to process that, having to live basically independently, and so it showed me that I only have me. I know that's not true now, but it took a while, but it showed me, um, I mean, it took a while for me to finally, allow people to be there for me and be there with me, be present with me and meet me where I'm at. It took a while. But for so long, though, I began to feel, and I didn't know I was feeling that until, therapy and stuff like that. But I felt unworthy and unlovable, and that
Mm.
drove my like life in a way. It drove me into addiction and things like that.
Yeah,
Of
you were
course, the
masking your
trauma.
feelings.
Yes, exactly. Now, of course, trauma had a lot to do with that as well, but a lot of it, it's so prominent, the feelings of unworthiness and feeling unlovable, and honestly, like, now I know I'm worthy of love. I do know it. I do believe it. However, I'm noticing now that, um there's still a journey of healing there. And I thought I was, finished with that journey. I really thought I was. I'm not at all.
Still got triggers.
Exactly. And
Mm.
so but so yes, so to answer your question, that's how that made me feel. Like, it made me feel a lot of things, but it, it, all those feelings led to that conclusion that there's something wrong with me. I'm unworthy, I'm unlovable. I know that's not
And
true, but that's what it led to. Yes.
and you weren't in a separated couple. You were in a household where you still didn't feel loved, and
Right.
that is very common as well, where
Hmm.
our
Well, they
parents don't
separated
have the
eventually,
capabilities. Yeah.
but a good
That's
chunk
yeah.
was together. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a common thing that often
Mhm.
we blame ourselves. "I'm not lovable," those words, and it was
Yes.
heartbreaking. And so it's changing that mantra and changing that story within us to say, "I am loved. I am worthy. I am enough." When I separated, I had a ring on my finger that said, "I am enough," and I used
Mhm.
to play with that all the time because I just felt like the most worthless human being after that situation.
Yes.
And yeah, it takes time to change the stories that we've got in our mind.
Yeah.
Um, and seeing our parents from a different lens
Yeah.
that if they can't show up for us, they can't show up for themselves.
Right.
And,
Mhm.
often parents are doing the best with what they've got, but our generation is very different to theirs.
Mhm.
They never got the love themselves,
Mhm.
growing up, so they don't know how to give it to other people. And
Mhm.
I think when we realize that, it makes our journey with our parents so much more connected.
Mhm.
My my dad wasn't around much when we were growing up, but to see him with my son, they're like best friends, and to see that relationship that they have is so healing for me because I can see that connection that I never had,
Mm.
that I can see that he's getting that, and it's so incredibly healing.
Yeah.
But it is
Yes.
a common story of kids is, "I'm not worthy, I'm not loved, I'm not enough,"
Yeah.
and this is the work that we do at Happy Souls Kids, is to help kids understand that they are worthy and they are loved and they are respected, and sometimes we do this thing called a friendship circle, going through and working out who our friends are. And we
Yes.
get to choose who our friends are, and if
Mm.
we have those same feelings with people around us,
Right.
um, that we had growing up. Like, if we can't repair it and we can't have those conversations, it's so okay to walk away from those friendships.
Yes. Yes. I completely agree. And I just loved everything that you said, and especially the I mean, that I think that was huge when you mentioned the ring that said I am enough. Did the ring actually say I'm enough? Did you get it from Amazon?
Yeah, I think so, yeah, I just
Okay,
got it online.
because as soon as you said that, I was like, I'm gonna go buy that ring as soon as we get off this call.
Yeah,
Because I always like to end with a little challenge in the episode with a little challenge, and I would tell people before the episode ends, tell 1 to 2 people. And I do 1 to 2 because I don't want to overwhelm someone, social anxiety is a thing, all that good stuff. But I say tell 1 to 2 people, yourself included, that you are worthy, you are lovable, and you are important. You
yeah.
know, um, I do it, but I don't tell myself that. And I need to.
Josiah, can I ask you something?
Yes, go for it.
Have you ever looked in the mirror and said, "I love you"?
Yes, thousands of times. And it totally started to work eventually. However, I stopped doing it because I was like, remember I told you I was like, I felt like that journey was over, and I got humbled into knowing like, oh, guess what? No. And so I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to get that ring so that every time I look in my hand, I see that I'm enough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and put Post-it notes around your house and
Yes.
put,
Isn't that
in your
beautiful?
wallet
On the
or
mirror.
on the mirror or, in even in the rear view mirror in a car, like,
Yeah.
put them everywhere that you can just to remind you that you are enough, and
Yes.
there's, uh it's like a roller coaster, sometimes we feel enough and then we don't, so
Yeah.
as soon
Mm,
as those thoughts start creeping back in again, that's the time to go back to the mirror, to go
yeah.
back to your mantras, to go back to "I am loved, I am worthy, I am enough."
Yeah.
And it's these small little changes that we make that make a big, big difference in our life.
Yes. That is beautiful. Exactly. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to set a wallpaper that says I am enough.
Yeah, on your phone,
Yeah.
wherever you can.
I look at that thing too much. So yes. Okay. Yes. Um so grieving thank you for what you've shared, Jay. So grieving friendships that ended without explanation. I want to know more about that journey as well. Like what did that look like?
Yeah, I mean,
What
I've
did you
had,
learn from it?
um, lots of different friendships end in different circumstances, and it was that same thing that you were talking about. I'd always blame myself, like, "What have I done now?" And, "Oh, what did I do?" Or, Why am I like this?" And I just blame myself,
Mm,
and I've always been very different to other people, and I've always been very in tune and self-aware, and it came to the point of realizing that actually I hadn't done anything. It's just that we're on different paths, and friends are like waves, they come and they go. There's always a point where people get triggered by me, and it's just for me being myself and being vulnerable and being raw, and people can't handle those conversations
right.
sometimes, and that's okay. Like, I'm okay with that,
Mhm.
but, I've heard some awful things,
Mhm.
I had a friend during COVID, and we were really close, and I'd mind her child a lot, and, there was one time that we went to on a holiday with them. They were staying out of Melbourne, about 4 hours away, and I have a habit of doing too much. Um, it's stopped now, but, like, we had 2 Christmas events, one of them with, both of them at my house, and then the next day I had to drive to Melbourne, and we had 35 people at our house, and I had to organize all of that. Then I had to somebody came, and then I drove 4 hours somewhere else. Like, it was just too much,
Mhm.
and I'm gluten intolerant, I can't have a lot of sugar, and we were in the middle of the country, and I had no access to any of those things, and it was just a disaster, not just for me, but for my son as well, and that we overdid it, and it wasn't our best weekend, we weren't our best selves, and we just needed space, and it was
Mhm.
just a tiny little house during COVID, you can't do much, and, um, we were just in each other's pocket, and it just didn't end up that well, and I was going through trauma at the time, and I had a friend, there was a situation where my ex-partner always told me that I was crazy for wanting something, and he gave everything to his new partner that I ever wanted,
Mhm.
and I had to sit through all of that, and there was a situation where something had come up that was really big for me, and she just said, "Oh, just go for a walk. You just need to get over it and go for a walk," and it was that situation, just Josiah, that you had, is just, "Well, just get over it." It's like, well, I don't like to get over things, I like to move through them,
Right,
and,
right.
um whereas she had more kind of Scientology of just like, "Just get over it."
Mhm.
Whereas I'm very different, I like to get to the core issue of why things are
Yes.
happening,
Yeah.
and then I got an email from her a few months later, and there were 3 things that she said. I sent it straight to my psychotherapist and psychologist,
Mhm.
and she really went over the email, and she deciphered it for me, but she said, "You are vomiting your stuff all over everybody." And she just basically just said that I can't remember some of the things that she said now because I've really moved through them, but there was 3 things that she said. The entire email was about everything that was wrong with me. Not one thing did she say that she had taken accountability for. It was just everything that was wrong with me. And I have a real problem with that because it takes 2 to tango, and we need to have open communication and conversations rather than just saying, "You are the whole problem, I am perfect, and you are the whole problem," and that's a common theme in my life that I get, is that
Mhm.
if somebody's always blaming you for the way that they are and the way that they're reacting to things,
Mhm.
you know, that's not a friendship. A
Right.
friendship is about communication and showing up for each other and really delving deep. I had another friend say to me, "It must be really hard for you to always play the victim."
Yeah.
Well, I've been in domestically violent relationships.
Mhm.
I have
Mhm.
been
Yeah.
betrayed. I've been abused. I have been, had many different traumas in my life, and I have
Yeah.
been a victim. So, at that time, I was like, "Wow, what an awful thing to say. It must be hard for you to always play the victim." Because some of us are victims at time. Does
Right.
it mean that we need to sit in that space? No, of course, we
Right.
need to move through it. But I find in friendships, people find confrontation really challenging. They find showing up for people really hard. They find conversations uncomfortable. And so rather than having a conversation with a particular person about how they're feeling and how we can meet on common ground, those relationships just end. But it's such a beautiful way to work out who belongs in your life and who doesn't.
Yes. Yes.
Mm.
You kn Okay, Jay, based off what you said, Jay, we have, I've said very, very, very similar, if not the same things that you have said. Once again, um,
Mm.
I will say I'm sorry that you went through that. I truly am.
I think
However,
it's wonderful, actually. It's part of my journey and my
oh,
experience. It
wonderful.
helps me
Okay,
to
well,
be
good.
stronger.
I'm glad you see it like that because that's true. That's true. It's part of the journey. Because I was gonna say, it. It's in a way like comforting. Thank you for sharing that because in a way it's comforting to know that like I'm not alone in going through that and thinking like that, and in experiencing that as well. And I
But
also,
when you get
yeah,
stronger, it's okay to walk away from certain people. Like, the old me would have stayed around and chased that friendship and wanted them to be around and didn't wanna be alone.
yeah,
And I think when you go on your journey and your healing path, you realize that you don't want people like that in your life.
right.
You make a choice to say, "That doesn't feel safe to me, and I'm okay with that person not being around me." That's the journey. The
Mhm,
journey is when we choose ourselves over other people
mhm.
and we fit out. Everyone always talks about fitting in, and I always talk about fitting out. Like,
Mhm,
it's okay to fit out. It's okay to not
mhm.
think the same as other people. Like, it's okay to wanna be on your own path, and sometimes that means walking away from things that don't feel safe for us.
Oh, wow, that was beautiful. What a beautiful reminder. Oh my
Mm,
gosh. Wow. Yes. Yes. And to hear that that's okay. It's okay to grow, you
yeah.
know?
So as you were talking about before, Josias, like, even with your family, it's okay to end those friendships and relationships regardless of who they are, just because 'cause they're family.
Right.
It's okay to put barriers or boundaries up.
Yes. That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Jay. So, um, I mean, I'm literally speechless because I really needed to hear a lot of what you said. And what I'm going to do is right after this, while I'm preparing your episode, I'm going to be listening to your episode again. Like, I'm your biggest fan because I needed to hear that. Like, I didn't realize that, like, especially when with the ring that says I'm enough. Let's just say I really needed to hear that. I really needed to hear
Mm,
that. Last week, I mean, if I'm being vulnerable, because it's vulnerability time, last week was definitely a week where it was one of my, in the realm of, you know, I am worthy, I am lovable, I am enough in that realm. Last week was my worst week in a while.
mm.
Um, so yeah, it was my worst week in a while in that area where it got to the point where, like, and I love what you said though. You were like, sometimes it's kind of like up and down, sometimes, and so I really needed that confirmation, Jay.
We have some down parts, and we've gotta
Yes.
realize that just because 'cause we're down sometimes doesn't mean we're out. It just means
Mhm.
that we can sit in it's like a roller coaster. They need to go down to go up. So sometimes our bodies need rest. Our
Yes,
bodies need to recuperate. Our bodies need time. As somebody once said to me, "When we're sick, it's an upgrade. Our body's upgrading."
it's
So
true.
that's how we can look at it even mentally when we're not there.
Mm,
Um, Sometimes we're upgrading. Sometimes we're having moments where we need to regroup and reset.
I just love that. I love that. I needed to hear that. This has been a very, 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 very enlightening and powerful episode. Very healing, and that's why I also love, going into the episode in the dark because I realized I was like, I actually get so much healing too from the guests. Like, I really do. And this is one of
Mm.
those, I mean, wow. I mean, I really needed to hear that. And I am very, very grateful for that. Thank you, Jay. Oh, sorry, were you about to say something?
No,
Okay.
no, no, no.
Jay, I just want to say thank you for still being here and breathing. Thank you for still breathing because you know what? What you said today could change someone's life.
Mm,
And so it's really, really, I just, I need you to know, like, we, and I say we, I'm speaking for folks that, will never meet that have heard this episode. It's top 5% in the world. There's no way we'll meet everybody. But on behalf of all of us, myself included, literally, you are so important. You are just worthy as you are, just in general. And you also are sharing so much healing. So thank you for that. Thank you so much. I truly mean it. Seriously. I know you've saved someone's life out there. I know it. So thank you so much. Seriously. I truly do mean that. Um,
Yeah, thank you for
I'm
having
getting
me,
emotional.
Josias.
And that's okay. It's okay. It's okay. No,
Yeah, and I think that's
yeah,
what we teach our adults and children. It's okay to have moments, and it's okay to be sad, and it's okay to be angry and disappointed and frustrated, and
exactly. Oh,
it's okay to have
yes,
all the emotions. Mm.
exactly. Yes. Oh, thank you, Jay. Jay, really quick, remind us a little bit about your app. So, just in case, folks, because I know sometimes people listen to half an episode and then finish the other half the next day. I know some people do that. I do that sometimes. So, uh, please re-let us know about your app and any
Yeah.
other work that you have that you want us to know. And it'll be in the episode description below, folks. So please go and check it out. But yes, Jay, go ahead and let us know. Okay.
Yeah, it's Happy Souls Kids, so it's still a prototype at the moment. So in the next few months, it'll be available on the App Store, and the website is www.happysouls.kids. And I've also got my Instagram, Happy Souls Kids, with an S and a S, Happy, and then Souls with an S and a Kids with an S. And then my personal one is Jacintha Field, which is JACINTHAFIELD. And so yeah, if you need some support, please reach out.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, great. Yes, folks, episode description below. Okay, well, this has been a fabulous, fabulous episode with a fabulous, fabulous guest. Um, Thank you for coming on, um, and helping continue to heal the world and each other. Um,
Beautiful.
Folks, this has been another episode of Vulnerability Time. I am your host, Josias Abriel, and I will see you on next episode for whatever that will be. Okay, bye, folks.